Yesterday on First Take, you called for Kathy Engelbert's resignation from her role as WNBA commissioner. When you hear Caitlin Clark there, how does that strike you?
Doesn't strike me at all. Same reaction. Kathy Engelbert should resign as the commissioner of the WNBA. And the reason...
Ladies and gentlemen, please halt all of your activities. Switch off the television. Put down your phone and pay close attention to what I have to say, because we are seeing the most selfish, self-destructive, and, to be honest, suicidal business choice in professional sports history. With the Olympic snub, we believed the WNBA had reached its lowest point. We believed they had reached their lowest point in the Rookie of the Year vote, but today they picked up a shovel and began laying the foundations for their own league. Several insiders have confirmed to us that Caitlin Clark has gotten a formal warning from the WNBA League office, which is headed by Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. What is the purpose of this warning? Did she violate any laws? Was she a drug test failure? No. She signed a historic agreement with NBC Universal to become a broadcaster, so they cautioned her. They threatened to sue her, saying that she had a conflict of interest because of her affiliation with NBC.
Take a moment to process that.
The woman who prevented your league from going bankrupt on her own. You respond by threatening the lady who brought you the billion-dollar TV deal and the private jets when she gets hired to promote basketball on national television. It's completely insane. It is an outspoken attack on your own product. Even the most prominent figures in sports media, such as Stephen A. Smith, are taking notice of this issue and calling for heads to roll, as we will hear shortly. This isn't only an error, this is sabotage. And the WNBA is going to get a very hard lesson about who is actually in charge of this relationship if they believe they can intimidate Caitlin Clark into compliance.
And unappreciative of the athletes that represent her league. And then the person I call the golden goose of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark. You understand, who is box office for the WNBA. Just look at the numbers, look at the ratings, look at everything. For her to come out and say...
When Stephen A. Smith removes his spectacles and stares into the camera, you know something is wrong. And that's precisely what took place. Stephen A. wasn't limited to criticizing the WNBA when this news surfaced. He made a resignation demand. "This is egregious," he replied, glancing at the camera. "This smacks of jealousy and is blasphemous." Stephen A. is correct. He made the obvious clear. Kathy Engelbert's behavior is not representative of a commissioner. She is behaving as if she were a hall monitor. "How dare you," he exclaimed. "What right do you have to imperil the golden goose? Sending her flowers is something you ought to do.
Her shoes need to be polished by you.
You're mailing her stop and desist letters instead." Stephen A. got farther. He exposed the conflict of interest justification for what it is, a fabrication. He yelled, "The WNBA benefits from NBA promotion. Basketball is just that, basketball. It is free marketing if I see Caitlin Clark discussing the game on Sunday Night Football or in the Olympics while sporting a WNBA hoodie. You can't purchase that kind of publicity." He is entirely right. The most ridiculous thing I have ever heard is the claim that Caitlin Clark's employment with NBC harms the WNBA. It would be like claiming that the Chicago Bulls suffered because Michael Jordan filmed Space Jam. It's absurd. At the end of his tirade, Stephen A. Smith made a demand that all fans should heed. Kathy Engelbert must step down with immediate effect. "If you don't perceive Caitlin's worth," he said, "you are unfit to lead, Clark. If you are so consumed with internal politics and trivial regulations that you attempt to undermine her." I also concur with him. This warning demonstrates how dysfunctional the WNBA's leadership is. They are deliberately opposing their own achievements. The fact that they have no control over her is something they detest. It was best stated by Stephen A. She despises her accomplishments. The commissioner detests Caitlin's dominance over the league. And everything they have created will be destroyed by that hatred. Here is where the WNBA's bluster actually becomes offensive. So let's set aside the emotion for a moment and examine the hard data. Are you aware of Caitlin Clark's WNBA salary? Are you aware of her base pay? $76,000. That isn't a pay in the professional sports industry.
It's a tip.
The mascot of the annual salary of the Denver Nuggets is $600,000. 10 times as much money is made by the man in the furry suit shooting t-shirt cannons as the face of women's basketball. Nevertheless, even after giving her the highest, the WNBA believes they own her, peanuts. They believe they have the authority to deny her a multi-million-dollar contract with NBC. Delusional entitlement is what it is. Imagine that your minimum wage employer attempted to dismiss you after you left to take a second job that earned $10 million annually. You would make fun of him. You would immediately quit. Caitlin Clark is in that situation. The arrangement with NBC is not a side project. The major event is the NBC contract. She receives more money on a single weekend than she would in 4 years from the WNBA. The WNBA is attempting to impose a non-compete agreement on an employee they hardly pay by sending this warning. It's offensive. It is deteriorating. It also demonstrates that the WNBA still sees itself as a pastime rather than a company. If they wish to exert power, they must give Caitlin Clark special money because of her exclusivity. Maybe you could advise her what to do if you put $50 million on the table. However, you sit down, stop talking, and express gratitude for playing for $76K. What is the reason? We must now ask. Why would Kathy Angelberg act in such a foolish manner?
She used to be the CEO.
She is a businesswoman. So, why give a warning that would undoubtedly backfire? Although the solution is unappealing, we must discuss it. The locker room is the solution. It was not a boardroom that issued this warning. It resulted from the old guard veterans lobbying. For months, we have been covering this. In the WNBA, jealousy is evident. Veterans who have been working hard for 10 years, sharing hotels, playing in Russia, and flying commercial, look up to witness a 22-year-old rookie flying private, landing 8-figure agreements, and receiving royal treatment from NBC. They're furious. They're enraged. Additionally, the commissioner is listening to them.
I said was that weak-ass response that Kathy Engelberg, I'm going to say it again because people thought I stuttered just that. I don't know how because I don't stutter. Weak-ass comment. I'm going to say it one more time. Weak-ass comeback. That's what she did.
They claim that it is unfair. Why is she allowed to disobey the rules? Why is she allowed to broadcast while we are required to practice? They want the league to make her more modest. They want Caitlin to be reminded by the league that she is still a rookie. Additionally, Kathy Angelberg gave in to the crowd rather than taking the lead. In an attempt to placate the envious veterans, she gave this caution. She's attempting to demonstrate the locker room. You see, I'm also hard on her. She isn't unique. Here's a reality check, though. She is unique. The only reason anyone is watching is because of her. It is poisoning the well for the commissioner to listen to the envious veterans. To cheer up the benchwarmers, you don't discipline your best player. That mindset is one of a loser. Stephen A. Smith also mentioned this. These veterans ought to look in the mirror, he added. Rather than criticizing her NBC agreement, you ought to inquire around how to obtain one. You should applaud her for raising the pay cap rather than attempting to bring her down to your level, but they are unable to do so. The jealousy is too intense. And that jealousy is reflected in this formal warning. It's hazing that has been institutionalized. Let's discuss this threat's legal reality. Comcast is the owner of NBC Universal. It is among the world's biggest media conglomerates. Their attorneys are more expensive per hour than the WNBA salary ceiling as a whole. Do you genuinely believe that the WNBA can defeat NBC in court? It's a gecko versus Godzilla. Comcast will litigate the WNBA into the Stone Age if they truly attempt to enforce this warning, fine Caitlin, suspend her, or prevent her from appearing on NBC. It's a mission of suicide. The WNBA is powerless. It's unlikely that Caitlin's WNBA contract forbids her from working outside the league, particularly if that work involves broadcasting, which is technically media rather than basketball competition. At best, the conflict of interest defense is weak. The NBA is broadcast on NBC. The NBA and the WNBA are partners. Where's the conflict? Not at all. It is a made-up justification for controlling. Let's also examine the sponsors. Wilson, Gatorade, Nike, and State Farm. Caitlin Clark has received millions of dollars from all of these enormous corporations. They are not the WNBA team. They are the Caitlin team. The sponsors will call Kathy Angel Burt and threaten to withhold funds if the league launches an offensive against her or attempts to suspend her, without comprehending that the hand that feeds them belongs to a Goliath who has the power to crush them. The WNBA is biting the hand that feeds them. "You are covered in gasoline, and you are playing with fire," Stephen A. Smith cautioned them. What comes next, then? The final game is this. A boundary has been established by the WNBA. Caitlin Clark has been cautioned. Caitlin must now reply. Furthermore, Caitlin Clark is a fierce competitor who is not going to back down, based on what I know about her. She is scheduled to appear on NBC. That microphone will be held by her. She will have an interview. Together with LeBron James, she will face the camera and challenge the WNBA to take action. She's calling their bluff. The WNBA will have two options once she does. They have two options. Either they give up and appear weak, or they suspend her and ruin their league. They have placed themselves in a precarious position. The fans will rebel if she is suspended. I am referring to a complete boycott. We must deactivate League Pass if they even touch a hair on her head about this. We must cease purchasing tickets. The accounts must be unfollowed. We must demonstrate that the talent, not the management, is the reason we are here. Stephen A. The fans should call for a revolution instead of Smith's resignation. Because of their own insecurity, we cannot allow these bureaucrats to ruin the heyday of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark has the most power. She is free to go. She is able to travel to Europe. She is able to join the league that is unmatched. She can become a full-time broadcaster after retiring. The WNBA is not necessary for her. She is as essential to the WNBA as oxygen is to a guy who is drowning. The last straw is this warning. It is the evidence we required that the WNBA's existing leadership is incapable of running the organization. They have handled the greatest gift in sports history like a burden. A savior has been taken and treated suspiciously. If you're listening, Kathy Angel Burt, pay attention to this.
Resign. Get down.
Let someone take charge who is knowledgeable about media, business, and celebrity power. Because you will be known as the commissioner who murdered the WNBA if you keep going in this direction and let envy and pettiness to influence your choices. Caitlin Clark will be all right. NBC will be all right. However, the commissioner is currently standing on an oxygen tube, and the WNBA is on life support. Although a warning has been issued, the league is the one who should heed it. The world is watching, Stephen A. is watching, and time is running out. Get out of the way or get ran over because the Caitlin Clark train is rolling, and it's not stopping for anyone, especially not for a league that pays her less than a mascot. Fix this or it's